So I have been finding myself in pretty much the same exact situation every year for the past 3 or 4 years on Ash Wednesday. Let me paint the picture for you. I'm sitting there in the church pew. I'm really connecting with the message because it's focused on the fact that Lent now begins, the season of 40 days of fasting from something or multiple things in your life, giving something up, and slash or adding in a positive habit into your life and sticking to that for 40 days, starting on Ash Wednesday, ending on Easter Sunday, right? So I don't know what it is about me, but for whatever reason, by the time that I get there to church on Ash Wednesday and I realize that, oh, it's Lent again, I'm very fascinated with the concept and I want to go all in, but I get caught up in picking something, picking something to give up during this time. And then it's like if I haven't picked something by the end of Ash Wednesday, which I typically don't, I actually have never done that because it's still a normal work day. Busy things are, it's a Wednesday. Come on. It's a Wednesday. We still have work and school and responsibilities. It's a busy day. It's the middle of the week, okay? So no, I have not chosen that day because I was unprepared and I forgot Lent was even happening. And so when Thursday comes around, Thursday, Friday, like we're still into the week, so now I'm stalling. Like I haven't picked something. It's like what I pick has to be perfect. I'll think of ideas and then they won't feel either obtainable or good enough. And then by the time the weekend comes, I completely give up because we're already 2, 3 days into Lent, and there is something about my brain that cannot do it at that point because I wouldn't have done the full 40 days. Why even try, you know? So there are so many parts of that we could get into. Like, I get it. I get it. It's never too late to start. Yada, yada, yada. Like, I get it, okay? I don't know why my brain does this, but this is the situation that I found myself in time and time again, come Ash Wednesday, okay? So you may be thinking to yourself, what changed this year, Dana? Because you're talking about Lent prior to Ash Wednesday even happening. Well, I was looking at the calendar and I was just planning out different topics that I wanted to bring to this podcast, and I saw that this episode would be releasing exactly 1 week before Ash Wednesday. And I just knew. I knew I had to talk about it today. So I do just want to make a point to note that you do not have to be religious in any way, shape, or form, really, or it doesn't matter what your religion is, if you're religious, in my opinion, in order to take something from this episode, because really my goal here is to analyze the concept of Lent and how it can influence our lives no matter what, whether it's that you're actually practicing Lent to grow closer to God, or if you're taking the concepts of Lent to just use in your day to day life, because I think that there's really something here for everyone. So, without further ado, let's dive in. So, the traditions of Lent revolve around Jesus's 40 days in the wilderness. So, essentially, Jesus was baptized, the Holy Spirit came into him, and then after that, he felt very called to go out into the wilderness, which this is going to sound very biblically uneducated of me, but I, when I heard the wilderness, I was envisioning like a jungle, like a wild jungle with monkeys swinging off of trees and palm trees and it being like really hot and humid. And it wasn't until recently that I found out that it was not like a jungle at all. It was more so giving desert. Actually, it wasn't giving desert, it was desert. So don't come at me for that. I'm just a girl over here. So Jesus felt called to go walk into the wilderness and ultimately connect deeper with God. That was the purpose, I believe. And during his time in the wilderness, it was very hard. He had no food, no water. The devil kept tempting him with things like, if you're really the Son of God, turn this rock into bread and like feed yourself, and just different things like that. And so ultimately, it was a very hard time for Jesus because although he is the Son of God, he was still in a human body, and the human body has obviously its own temptations and needs and just the want for food when you're hungry. So, after he came out of that, I am pretty sure it was right after that that he was crucified and then rose again and all of that. I'm pretty sure that would actually make sense because the 40 days of Lent is representing the 40 days that Jesus spent in the wilderness, and Lent begins on Ash Wednesday and ends on Easter. So that would make sense. Hopefully, I'm correct on that. Listen, you're going to have to read your Bible if you want the straight facts, because I'm just giving my understanding over here. Anywho, so the concept of Lent today is to kind of envision yourself going into the wilderness with Jesus. And going into the wilderness, quote unquote, is essentially stripping something from your life, something that doesn't serve you, that is a good thing to get rid of, but that will be hard to get rid of, and walking that journey with Jesus very consciously. So, leaning on Him, like let's say you're giving up alcohol. I feel like that's a very common one for people. Obviously, on that Friday night when you had a really long week from work and you just want a drink, fighting that temptation through prayer and through talking to God and through reading your Bible and basically going out into the wilderness with Him, because going on this journey is not easy. It's hard, it's painful. It's like being stuck in a desert with no food or water. It's really difficult, but I think the religious perspective of it and in the way of having a relationship with God is that you come out on the other end such a stronger person, and you realize that through leaning on God, you can accomplish hard things and you can move past negative habits that you have in your life. So I've always just been very fascinated with this concept, whether you're looking at it from a religious perspective or not, or just from the perspective of giving something up for a certain period of time and how that can positively affect your life. Another reason that I've always really been drawn to the concept of Lent is at its timing in the year. So I'm someone who absolutely loves the summertime, the heat, the sun baking down on me. I'm obsessed with it. It's when I'm my happiest. And I do unfortunately live in New England, and so we don't get a very long summer, and the seasons themselves are beautiful. However, it feels like most of the time it's just winter, and when winter does come, it just drags on and on and on. And so spring has come to be my favorite season because it holds the promise of summer. It's like being alive for the first time when spring comes around in New England. It's like it's been freezing, it's been dark and just freezing and windy and snowing every second for months on end. And then you like hear a bird chirp and you get a 60-degree day, and the sun, like you can feel the sun really beating on your face. It is like drugs. It is literally like drugs, and I live for that. So, Lent is at this beautiful time in the year where it catches the end of winter and right into the beginning of spring. By the time that you're on the other end and it's the end of Lent and you're celebrating Easter, what is Easter associated with? Spring, flowers blooming. We have pretty pastel colors in the stores because we're promoting Easter and spring coming. And to me, Lent falling at that time of year is even more appealing because it feels like shedding the very last remnants of your bad habits and traits and leaving them in the winter and almost blooming into this better version of yourself, putting a new foot forward going into the spring and the summer, which is personally my absolute favorite time of the year. That is why I have always been really drawn to it, and I have always been intrigued by the thought of how much better and how much more satisfying Easter would be if you had actually invested in Lent. Like, picture this: you chose to give something up for 40 days, whether it was actually in recognition of Lent for religious purposes or just for your own thing. You did the hard work. For 40 days, you gave something up that you have known has been a bad habit and a toxic trait of yours. However, you chose to show up it's just 40 days. I mean, 40 days is a while. However, you can do it, you know? Now it's Easter Sunday. And wherever you are, whether you're even celebrating Easter or not, it is Easter Sunday. And the sun is shining, and there's kids running around finding Easter eggs filled with money or candy. It's just, I don't, maybe you don't resonate with this at all, but the satisfaction of actually following through with Lent, I feel like just makes Easter so much sweeter. Well, at least I'm assuming, because again, like I mentioned earlier, I have not actually done this. Like, it's not even just a religious practice, it's literally nature's timing for a fresh start. The birds are awakening, like, everything is awakening. Spring is here. It just makes sense. It's like, let's assess what we're holding on to that's negative right now, and let's choose to strip it for 40 days, and let's come out on the other end better. And so, more so leaning into just the concept of Lent, if you really think about it, it's such a healthy thing to do because if no one ever changed, life would be very boring. We all are continually changing. Obviously, in physical ways, we're always growing older and our bodies are physically changing as a result of that. But our minds and our consciousness should also be changing as well. And if they aren't, then that would just be boring. Everyone would be boring. What would be fascinating about that if we literally had no ability to change and we knew that everyone on this planet was going to stay the exact same way forever? That sounds terrible. There's no hope for change. There's no, like, that's what makes life interesting. The fact that you can become intrigued by something new or pick up new hobbies or try different things and then talk to new people about it. And, like, that is what makes life interesting. Something that I forgot to mention earlier about the traditions of Lent and what typically happens is no meat on Fridays. And so that's a form of fasting. Like, fasting can come in many different forms. You can be fasting from drinking or fasting from smoking, but typically when you hear the word fasting, you think of not eating anything. And so fasting from meat is usually a part of the quote unquote rule set, if you will, for Lent. And what I find interesting is that fasting isn't just about restriction, but it's also about making space. Because really, it's about setting aside the noise so that you can hear what really matters. Because if you're just constantly distracted with the loudness and the noise of the world, then you have no space to try something new. You're just stuck in that noise. And so to me, fasting, whether it's with something physical or actually food related, like avoiding meat on Fridays, or if it's fasting from gossip, you're allowing space. You're literally giving yourself more space to implement change in your life. And like, you do not have to be religious to feel the weight of distraction, the weight of bad habits, the weight of overwhelm. We all get that. That's a part of the package deal when you're born on this earth. No one is immune to that. And so I find it kind of beautiful that the concept of Lent gives you space and almost like this structured opportunity to take a step back, cut out some of the noise, and really look at yourself, look at your soul, and look at your consciousness in the mirror and be able to strip some things away and do that for a better life. Listen, you guys, in a world that spends most of their time on screens, I am all for a healthy escape. Whether that's just stepping away from the screens or getting lost in a good book for a while, we need that break. And if you're looking for that kind of escape, you have got to check out sarahcrownbooks.com. Some people are born storytellers, and let me tell you, Sarah Crown is one of them. From recording her first stories as a child to studying under top Hollywood story experts like John Truby, she has built a life around words, weaving thrilling narratives with depth and heart. With degrees in psychology, education, and law, Sarah brings a unique perspective to her writing, one that grips readers and just doesn't let go. Trust me, her stories are the perfect way to unplug and dive into something unforgettable. Her latest novel, All These Threads of Time, is the perfect blend of heart-pounding suspense and mind-bending time travel. Set in the 80s, when Sylvie Mitchell discovers that she can jump through time, she's determined to save her family from a serial killer. But the past fights back in ways that she would have never expected. If you love mysteries with a twist and time travel that'll keep you on the edge of your seat, this book is for you. And if you're looking for more than just stories, Sarah's Substack called A Busy Lady is your backstage pass to her writing journey. She takes you behind the scenes with inspiration, writing tips, and more. Whether you're a writer, a reader, or just someone looking to live a more creative life, A Busy Lady will give you the tools and motivation you need. Don't miss out on Sarah's thrilling books and creative wisdom. Check out sarahcrownbooks.com for more information on her books and Substack. That's sarahcrownebooks.com. In stories, we find ourselves. I am really excited that I'm not going to be late to the game this year. I'm excited to pick the things that I am going to fast from for the next 40 days starting on Ash Wednesday. I admittedly do not have those things picked out yet, so definitely stay tuned for an update during Lent on what I'm actually doing and how I'm doing with those. But at least I'm thinking about it and I have some time beforehand so that I don't find myself in that same exact situation again this Ash Wednesday, because I really want to make a change this year. I really want to feel that satisfaction of enjoying Easter Day, knowing that I just went through 40 days, giving up something for the better, and am now coming out on the other end, entering spring and summer, my favorite seasons, a better person. And yeah, I kind of want to challenge you to think about what you need to release. What do you need to add? I don't technically think that there are any specific rules around how many things you should be releasing or you have to release something and add something in. I think it's pretty flexible. It's really whatever you make it. But essentially, the way that I like to think of it best to kind of balance myself out is what is one thing that I need to let go of and what is one thing that I can replace that with that's a more positive habit. So, I guess, for example, let's say we were talking about fast food. You would release fast food and say, okay, for 40 days, I'm not going to eat any fast food. And in replace of that, because you still need to eat, I'm going to make my own meals. And this is really not restricted to physical things at all. It doesn't have to be physically giving up food or drinking or whatnot. It can just be a mindset. It can just be a way that you're acting. It can be a habit, anything really. Like, let's say recently you have had a tendency to gossip about coworkers behind their back. That is something that it's invisible, like you can't see it, but you feel it. It's a part of your consciousness, and what you're doing day to day. So that is something that you can fast from. And maybe in replace of that, you can start journaling, seeing the good. Because there's good in everyone, you just have to look. Even though it might feel good to gossip and put someone down because they were mean to you or they upset you or they did something wrong, it's still not really your place to be gossiping about them. Like, I just feel like Lent is that reset button that our souls literally need. Every once in a while, we just need that reset. And so, with whatever you choose to release, it can be big, it can be small. It's going to make a positive change in your life. And I think that's what's beautiful about it. There's a whole range of extremes that you can choose. Like, you can be on one end of just being like, okay, I'm not going to gossip anymore. And then you can be completely on the other end and you can be like, okay, I'm choosing to leave the toxic relationship that I've been stuck in for 6 years. You know what I mean? Like, those are two extremes. Like, I guess one would say that leaving the relationship of 6 years is harder, a lot harder than just simply choosing to stop gossiping. However, regardless, it's going to make a change, big or small, in your life. It's going to make a change. And that is just going to inspire you to make more changes, and it's going to open up so many things in your life. So it's like a win-win. Like, you literally can't lose other than the uncomfort of choosing to do this. Because, like I've said before, it is not all sunshine and rainbows. It's not glorious. If you are choosing to release something, that means you've been holding on to it, and quite tightly. Like, you have been gripping onto this thing for whatever reason, for safety purposes, for it just feels good, for whatever reason, this thing that you're now choosing to release, you've been holding on to. It's a habit, you're used to it, it's a part of your day to day life. Letting that go is not going to be easy. It's going to be extremely uncomfortable and at times painful and sometimes borderline debilitating. And it's going to feel like the wrong decision. Like, your flesh is not going to want to give that up because it's your safety net. But what's so beautiful is that you don't need to gossip about people behind their back in order to release the emotions that you're feeling. You don't need to remain in a toxic relationship for safety. What you find at the other end of releasing these things is a true freedom that is unmatched, because you just begin to trust that it's all going to work out. You see way more clearly that what your habit was just a crutch, and you're actually way stronger than that. You don't need that crutch in order to live a successful, happy life, in order to live, period. You don't need it. And through this process, you end up proving that to yourself. And I think that that is just absolutely beautiful. And that is the best gift that you can give to yourself, is to do the hard thing. Don't always choose the easy route. What's easy and what's comfortable is not what's going to help you grow. And Lent is not just about what you're giving up, it's about who you're actually becoming. Like, if you think of life as a long road, like a walk, and as you walk and you keep walking, the scenery changes and the people you're walking with change, and some stay and some don't. And there's all these different dynamics to this walk that you're taking. And it's like Lent is like this beautiful little rest stop. It's an opportunity to silence the chaos for 40 days and choose one bad habit that you've been holding on to and consciously strip yourself of it. And at the end of that, you're able to get back up and continue walking on your road, a better you. It's just beautiful. I love it. I'm excited. I'm wicked excited to actually dive into this year. I need to figure out what I'm actually going to release. And I really want to keep it simple. I want to keep it simple and I want to tell people about it so that I have some accountability, because I feel like that's kind of where I also have a tendency to fall off, because I'm the kind of person who doesn't want to tell anyone about anything I'm doing until it's completed, because it almost feels like if I tell someone something that I'm trying to do and then I don't actually end up following through with it, like I just feel like an idiot. But with this, I just really think it's important to have people in my life who are holding me accountable, because ultimately that just in turn motivates you more to stick with it, because like I said, it's not going to be easy and you're not always going to be able, like you can't do it alone. And looking at this from the religious perspective is you need God. Like, walk with God through your wilderness, because he's been there and he knows you and he loves you and he wants to hold your hand through that. So let's do it, guys. I truly think that the concept of Lent is something that can absolutely transform your life for the better. Let's not just let this season pass us by. Let's not just passively let March and April and May kind of just happen. Let's be conscious and intuitive and let's tap back into ourselves and figure out what we need to release, what we can replace that with, and how we can come out on the other end more intentional about our lives. All right, that's all I have today. I will make sure to keep you guys updated on how I'm doing. Happy Ash Wednesday, happy season of Lent. I'm so excited to hear what you end up doing. If you are enjoying this podcast and you want to stay up to date, feel free to give it a follow on Instagram at the Lot of It Podcast. All episodes are also on YouTube and most major podcast streaming platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, etc. And I can't wait to talk next time. All right, have a beautiful rest of your week.